Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Nomad Strength Show. We have a really fun episode for you today. I have Chance Skelton of Rut Holsters joining the show today. And Chance and I have become, like so many guys on this that have come on this show, just become friends through Instagram and other social medias and have connected for a long time. And he makes really awesome Kydex holsters for your weapons. And I really just wanted to get him on to chat and catch up and, actually introduce myself and speak quote unquote face to face to him. But it was a really awesome conversation. We got into some things that I was really excited to talk about. We talked a lot about conservation, and he's out in Colorado. So we talked a lot about the legislation out there with all the cats and the wolves here in Idaho. And we got a lot into that. But also one of the things I really enjoyed in our conversation was our children. And talking about, this thing that we love, hunting so much, and how are we going to introduce this to our children? Both of our oldest are around the same age. Mine's 5, his is 6. And they're at the age now where they're wanting to be involved. And so how do we go about introducing our kids to this thing that we love in a way that makes them, or hopefully makes them, love it too? So it was a really fun conversation. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. And if you want any of these holsters, they're amazing things that he makes, and you can get different prints on them, designs, and whatever weapon you need, they can pull it off. So you can go to rutholsters.com. He's Rut_holsters on Instagram. Go follow him and check it out. And before we get into that, I want to make sure you guys go check out Selway Archery products as well. If you need some accessories for your traditional bows, your recurve, your long bows, any sort of on bow quiver, they hand make in Pennsylvania, they hand make, and any sort of on bow quiver they hand make. They have rawhide, they have plastic hood quivers. You can get those customized as well. Drew Kohlhofer and family are awesome. So go check out selwayarcheryproducts.com. So now let's get into the show with Chance Skelton. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Nomad Strength Show. Got Chance Skelton joining me today from Rut Holsters is how we connected on Instagram. And I appreciate your time, dude. I want to get into some fun stuff with you. So thanks for making time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on, man. I'm excited to kind of dig into whatever we dig into today and see where it goes. So
yeah, it's funny because I have a lot of these guys like yourself where I've followed you for so long because you're in the outdoor space and you make these awesome Kydex holsters for weapons and everything, but it was just a random one post one time where we just started messaging each other after it, and then it's just like every other day we're messaging each other now, and it's like I just got to talk to this guy. Like I can't keep going between just Instagram DMs every time I need to talk to him.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I keep up with your stuff, and it was that same thing. It's just that like one post, or like where things just come together, and it's like, man, we got to get together, have a conversation, talk, and just see where it leads.
Exactly. So I want to kind of just go back and start at the we don't have to go all the way back to the beginning, I guess, but with the company, Rut Holsters that you have, I'm want to know how all that began, because that is correct me if I'm wrong, but that is still kind of just a side gig for you at this point. So what was the pull to have something that you wanted to create and put out there and do it as a business?
Well, it never really meant to start as a business. I think that's how like so many of these little things start. Is it's like you just have an idea, and me and my buddy, and probably what was it, maybe 2020, somewhere in there, we were messing around. We were looking for holsters, wanted to be able to carry when we were hunting, stuff like that. We just couldn't find what we liked anywhere, and we got to look, and we're like, well, I could pick up this brand, I could pick up that brand, and I can make some adjustments to it, tweak it, make it work. And I was like, by the time we put all that into it, I can buy the stuff, make them in the garage for the same amount of money, and I'm not having to retrofit. I can just create what I want. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of how the company started. Was I was just doing it for buddies. It was Instagram. It was, selling them through there. Nothing major. It was, yeah, just kind of low key. And then I had the idea I could make one that would mount below my bino harness on the molly down below.
Yes.
And it was just like this random thought. I was like, I wonder if I could do that. So I ordered some parts, and, I ordered a pile of parts not knowing what I'd need. And I went out in the garage one day and I messed around with it for a while. And I came up with it, and I got a model, the first iteration of it, which was hideous, but it worked. And I was like, man, I did it. It worked. Mounted it to my harness. I was using marsupial harness at the time, mounted it on there. Went inside, got in the mirror in the bedroom, took a terrible picture of it, and threw it up on Instagram story. And as soon as I threw it up on the Instagram story, Marsupial shared it.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, oh, like in my mind, I'm like, oh, like what have I done? And so then I got people messaging me like, hey, where'd you get this? Where can I get one? Blah, blah, blah. And my wife's like, we got an LLC. Before we dig into this, we got to do the whole deal. Like, let's get this set up right before it really goes somewhere. And from there, it's just kind of my innovation of just like the different ways to be able to carry comfortably when you're out in the field, whether you're hiking, whether you're hunting, whether you're fishing, just when we're out there, because what you run into out there, I mean, even when you're in town, mobilities, you know, I have one for women or guys that'll clip to compression shorts. So if you're out trail running, I have women who run in Denver. I'm here in Colorado that want to be able to carry when they're in Denver out on a run, you know, because unfortunately that's a society we live in. But it's kind of, you know, just the innovation is from necessity more than like anything else. And I mean, that's my favorite part, is just getting to play around with stuff out in the shop when I'm not doing orders, and I'm like, what can I innovate now? So
I love that, because that's so many similar stories for guys that have a product, you know, specifically a product that they've created. If there's some kind of maker or craftsman or something like that, where it was like, I wanted to just mess around with this because it was something that I wanted. And then it just spiraled, and it's like, I just enjoy the experimenting part of it and trying to figure out new ways to do this thing just because I enjoy it. And it turns out that other people end up wanting to buy that. That's great. But it's like, they didn't always start out with the idea of, I'm going to create this in order to sell it. It's like, I just wanted this and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I just decided to make it myself. And like, because I wanted it a certain way, and that wasn't around anywhere. So I just decided to do it. And it's like, you get good at it, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, this could be a business at that point. It's just, there's so many times I've seen that, like that storyboard of stuff. And then also like the fact of what year you got, you know, 4 years ago when you guys started it, dude, I think we're going to look back on that year and be like, this was, I can't even imagine how many thousands of businesses and stuff were created during that summer. You know what I mean? Like, it's gonna be crazy. Like, I can't tell you how many guys I've talked to that they're like, yeah, man, it was just nobody else was doing anything, and I was like, I want to do something. I got to figure out something to do. So like, we just started this business up, and I'm like, that's so common, man. It's crazy.
You know, they sent us all home. We couldn't work. I was working for a construction company, and we had, not due to COVID, but we'd had some layoffs and stuff come around. Probably eventually due to COVID,
Sure.
just from losing the work type stuff, but not directly COVID. And that was like, you know, I had the extra time. I was working a couple part-time jobs waiting to find something else, because, you know, you can't find anything when there's nothing to do. And
Right.
so like, I had the time, and I just got to messing with stuff, playing around with kydex more and more. And that's, like I said, that's the fun part for me. And then I just keep trying to come up with new ways to make a system better. And that's kind of the coolest part, is our newest system is the fully modular. The ability to move it from behind your bino harness to under your bino harness to your hip belt, even to a thigh rig if you want to, without having to move any screws, without having to do anything. It's just a quick detach and move it to wherever you need it. That way you're not limited. And that one kind of came from, you know, some guys that had messaged me looking for a system like that, and also just from, you know, you sit back and you look at it. If you're carrying on your backpack, your bino harness, or anywhere like that, you get into camp, what's the first things you ditch when you get into camp? You ditch your backpack and you ditch your bino harness. I tell my wife, bino harness, I'm like, it's like a bra. And she's like, oh, that's cute. You have no idea what you're talking about.
You shut your mouth.
That's cute that you think so.
That's hilarious.
But then to be able to just quick take them off of there and throw a mount on your belt, so that you're able to move it off your pack to your belt, because when you throw your pack and your vinyl harness in your tent, in your camper, wherever you go out to eat, that's where you're going to run into bears. That's where you're going to run into issues, is when you're out there, you got food around, you're not paying attention. So just the ability to move it, have it wherever you need it, have it comfortable. That's kind of our newest system.
That's really cool. The behind the binos placement of it is one that I'm like, dude, that's just so brilliant, because in those, and I've done one where it was the one that was below, and for whatever reason, I just didn't like it being that low, and it just, it kind of floats around a little bit, like it's secure in there, like it's not, just flying all over the place. It's secure, but it just was something where it's like, I just want it tighter to my body, like that same feeling where it's inside the waistband in the front, or like that appendix carry set, where it's just, it feels a part of my body while I'm walking around, especially where like when you're hiking around and you can just like slip and fall. Like I don't want something else just flapping all over the place, and so I've always loved the idea of that behind the harness, just because it's, and just from an ease of access to just slip that hand right there. Like that just always seemed to me like this needs to be a thing. Like and then I saw when you guys were doing it, I'm like, oh, freaking A, thank you. That's exactly what I needed.
That's all my wife too. I have to give her credit. We the way we do it for any harness with a pocket is it's just a paddle insert.
Yeah.
Slips right into the pocket on the back of your harness, so it makes it easy to remove it if you want to.
Just pull it right out.
Pull it right out. It's not going through straps. It's not all this mess. But that was all her, because I had a guy that asked if I could do it, and I was like, I've been trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I spent like a day out there messing with ideas, trying stuff, and I came back and I was like, I just don't know what I'm doing. She's like, well, why don't you just make something that like slides in the pocket? And I was like, well, you can't, it wouldn't. And just turned around and walked back outside. And I'm like, so I have to give her credit, because awesome. She had the simplest solution, and I was like, that's brilliant. Like,
that's awesome.
Why, like, so she's the one that came up with that whole design system. And
so it's essentially, it is like, like those paddle holsters that you would slide into the front. It's that same concept, but it just would slide into the pocket that sits on the back part of the harness then.
Yeah, as long as it's got a pocket back there, I just mold it to be real tight fit, so it doesn't want to.
Sure.
Like, once it's in there, it doesn't want to slide side to side, so it's a pretty tight fit.
Yeah.
And then on that paddle, I felt back the paddle too with some adhesive felt, so you can still shove a phone in there. Yep. You can still shove something in there, and you're not risking hurting something on Kydex. You're not completely losing that pocket. It's maybe a little tighter, can't carry as much stuff in it, but you still have the ability to, shove your phone down in there if you want to and be able to use it still. So
that's killer, dude. And you're coming into this, into this business, into this industry, having already been hunting and all this, and done the outdoors thing for, I imagine, a long time. So that's kind of what I wanted to get into now. Like, where did the outdoors hunting world, make an appearance for you for the first time? Were you like young kid? Did you grow up with this stuff? Was it later on, what we call like the late onset hunter or whatever they call it? Like I am, like wasn't starting until my early 20s. What was that for you?
A little bit of both. I mean, I bird hunted, did some like stuff like that when I was younger. I grew up rodeoing. So I rode saddle bronc horses all the way from high school through college, all the way into the PRCA professional rodeo, the whole 9 yards. So like, for me, that was life from the time I started at 15 till the time I hung it up at 27. That was where I lived. Was if there was nothing to, like, I was going to a rodeo. That was all I cared about. I was working to earn money to pay entry fees to go to a rodeo. But growing up, I mean, we still went and hunted. Didn't do a lot of big game. Did a lot of like pheasant, upland bird hunting. Sure. Did some duck hunting in college with the guys on the rodeo team, that type of stuff. And then, later in my 20s is when I really got into big game. When I quit rodeo, and then I had that free time to do a little bit more of that stuff. I went up muzzleloader hunting with my brother-in-law a couple of times, and then after that I got a bow. And once a bow got in my hands, it was over. It was all downhill from there. Like, I'm that guy, once I get into something, like I'm going to dive so deep down the rabbit hole in it that, like, I went from getting a bow to building my own arrows within like 2 months. So like it was just a downward spiral quickly. But I mean, that's where it really got important to me. And during that time rodeoing, though, I mean, I was doing pack trips on horseback with my dad, with buddies. So like we'd have those breaks where I'd go do stuff in the mountains, still spending that time up there, just not necessarily hunting. And that's where, I mean, I've always loved being in the outdoors, having that time. If it was stopping when we were driving to a rodeo to do some fishing,
Yeah.
because we had an extra little bit of time to do that, or, whatever we could find. But I mean, when you get into pro rodeo world, it's such a just go, go, go type of deal that it was few and far between I had as much time to do that stuff. So.
Well, I want to actually, now that you brought that up, I want to ask about that because, I'm in Southern Idaho, and there's a big rodeo community in Southern Idaho. Actually, with the community college in Twin Falls, CSI, has like one of the better rodeo programs in the country, and they've got guys that are going to like the national competitions and stuff every year. Like they're good. So but I was tangentially next to that. Like I just had friends that did it. Like I was never super involved in and around it other than like every year at the county fair, like we'd go watch rodeo. Right. And
Right.
there was a couple of them. So on the pro circuit, like how does that actually map out schedule wise? Do you guys have like seasons where it's like, April through September or whatever it is? And then is it like every weekend you're doing something? Like what is that schedule like?
I mean, there's rodeos year round, depending on how far you're willing to travel. I mean, Texas, there's always something going on, and you can go once you have a PRCA card. I mean, pro rodeo card, you can go anywhere you want to. Obviously, summer, like right now, county fairs are starting.
Yep.
This is the 4th of July is next week. I mean, 4th of July is what we call Cowboy Christmas, because that's when you think there's a rodeo somewhere for the next 5-7 days.
Yep.
Every night somewhere. I mean, we used to go from just here in Colorado, we'd go from Steamboat Springs to Crawford, Nebraska, and then you'd cut back over to Cody, Wyoming, come back down to Steamboat. And I mean, you're doing that within 4 days. You're just zigzagging to hit them all. So there's not really a season. I mean, that for Pro Rodeo National Finals is obviously in December. So the new season starts in January. The other one ends in December. So you get a little bit of a gap in there where there's not a lot going on. But I mean, once you're in and trying to go, and college rodeo and on top of it, or even little amateur rodeos you're hitting. If you can't get into a pro rodeo, you're finding somewhere else to go hit a little rodeo to try and make a little bit.
It's just all the time else. Then. Whenever there's something around, you go do it.
Oh yeah.
And what was the one that you said you did? The event that you did?
I did saddle bronc riding.
Oh, nice, awesome. Did you start with that like right away and just stick with that the whole time?
I grew up riding horses since I could walk, basically, just riding saddle horses. And so, I mean, I learned to rope. I learned to do all the stuff. I tried riding steers and bulls a little bit when I was younger, and it just wasn't my thing. And then we went to Oklahoma and went to a saddle bronc riding school, and I got on my first one, and it was from there, like, it's the same thing. That's a deep downward spiral. I was hooked, and I was hooked hard, and it was it.
Is there ever any, I've always been curious about this, what's between the bull riders and the bronc guys, like, is there ever any, like, like little beef between the two, like looking down on one because it's, not as hard as the other? Like, I'm always curious if there's ever any of that.
No, not there. I mean, in high school, like, you get the little tiffs between, like, the timed event, the ropers and the rough stock guys. Like, yeah. You have that when we're young, when we're in high school, because we're all just, testosterone-fed teenagers that just think something's better than the other. But, as you get older, it just becomes like we're all here for the same thing. Like, my college roommates, like, are still some of my best friends, and they were bull riders or bareback riders, and I was a saddle bronc rider. And the nice thing is knowing those guys is when I'm getting my stuff ready and I need help, I can grab one of them.
Yeah.
If they need help, they can grab me because I'm not busy during the bull riding, and they're not busy during the bronc ride. And so I think that's just I was talking with somebody else the other day, and it's one of those correlations I think between the hunting world and the rodeo world. You see so much is just that camaraderie of like, I'm here to help you, like, let's help each other. And I think it's growing more and more even in this hunting industry of like, hey, whether you're an archery guy or whether you're a rifle guy, like, we need to have each other's backs and be there to help each other because everybody else is aligned against us. And so I think naturally for me, that was just there because in the rodeo world, the guys I traveled with rode saddle bronc horses with me, and I was competing against them every rodeo.
Yeah.
But, like, I never viewed it as me against them. It was me against whatever horse I was getting on, whatever horse I'd drawn. That was who I was competing against. And so I'd get off, and if I did my best, I'd come right back and tell my buddy, like, hey, man, go beat me, go make a better ride than I did, go win this thing because you've got the ability to do it too. And it wasn't, you know, you weren't ever mad if they beat you fair and square. And that was just kind of like the mentality I think you grow up with in that world.
That's really cool. There's actually a pretty similar experience I had in I ran track in college, and I did the decathlon. And so when you do the decathlon, for people that aren't aware of how it's like actually set up at a meet, the decathlon is basically its own separate meet that takes like the first day of it, because it's 5 events each day for 2 days. But the first day of it takes place before the other meet even starts. It's like like you're literally only there with the other the dozen other decathletes, and you do every event together. So like you're all just in this little group bouncing around. Like you do all the, you know, you start on the 100 open, you go to long jump, you go to the shot, but like you do all these things. And so you actually end up just kind of like the same thing you said, like it doesn't ever feel like you're competing against the other dudes. Like, because you're all just doing these individual events, you just happen to be doing them at the same time, because it's all like you get scored based on how you, like the mark that you get. It's not like what place you get in the thing. It's just based on like what your mark was. And so everybody else ends up just start like cheering for each other, and you become friends with all these guys where everybody else shows up and it's like, I got to try and beat this dude in the open 400 today. You know, like it's like, well, yeah, I might beat him, but my time that I get is going to get me enough points. Like I might beat him anyways, even if he beats me in this one race. So it's like, it's just this weird thing where like nobody really understood it. You're roaming around with these like dozen dudes, and technically you're all competing against each other, but it never feels like that. And everybody's like slapping hands and cheering each other on. And it's like, you're so removed from the meet. It's like you're not even a part of the team anymore. It's like all those guys, all the decats, they're all over there just doing their own thing. But it's so funny that you say that, because it's like there is, and even especially in the hunting world, I've noticed too, where it can be so tribal about so many different things. Like, you know, even within like what you would think would be the same. Like if you just narrow it down to archery, well, it's like, well, there's compound versus traditional. And then even within compound, it's like, it's brand. It's like, what do you know, like what brand you're shooting, all that kind of stuff. But there's so much from anti-hunting community, and then legislatively, like all over the place. Like you're in Colorado, dude, like that's the hotbed right now for a bunch of garbage legislation and stuff. And so it's like, or, you know, we could just take a minute here and realize that none of this stuff between us is worth it. Like we all have to be fighting against the thing that's trying to take us all out, you know. Like it's picking your battles is not even the right phrase. It's like there's really only one battle to fight, it seems. And it's like we just get so caught up in all these silly little things between each other that's like, this is how they gain ground on this kind of stuff. And like I said, you're in Colorado. I mean, there's all that stuff with all the cat legislation that's out, and wolves lately too. Like, it's just gnarly, man. Like, what has all that been like recently? I mean, it's been a little bit since I've seen where it has been, but do you have any like updates as far as any of that stuff going on in Colorado?
I mean, we're still trying to fight it. It looks like it's probably going to be a ballot measure at this point for the cat hunting stuff.
Yeah.
Which, we make the joke around here, ballot box biology here in Colorado.
Exactly.
Like, why not let the professionals that know what they're doing make the plan? Instead, we're going to just let, the people that have no idea what's going on make this plan. And you look at anybody talking about it, meat eaters talking about it, they're all talking about it. That you compare us, like, look at California. They were killing the same amount of cats before that as they are now.
But now it's just government agents doing it instead of hunters being allowed to do it.
Yeah. We're paying people now to go kill these mountain lions instead of hunters paying for the opportunity to go do it. And
exactly.
I had a guy reach out to me on Facebook that just didn't know anything, and he's like, "Hey, could you tell me more about like why we should fight against this?" And I was like, "Here's the thing: is like, number one, mountain lion is delicious. Like, number one, if you've never ate it, like, it is amazing. Like, my daughters love it. I haven't gotten a mountain lion, but I have enough buddies that have that. They're like, hey, you want some? I'm like,
yeah, absolutely.
And so it's delicious. Number two, like, any predator uncontrolled is a problem. There's a reason that as humans we have tags. There's a reason that we have a hunting system set up, and it's not just like, hey, go kill whatever you want to, because if we did that, obviously there would be an issue. So any predator left uncontrolled is a problem.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just trying to focus that to people, but how do you get that message out to the general public
Yep.
when, you have the other side pushing so hard. And, I forget who it was. They said they talked to some of the people out getting signatures for it, and the guys didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
They weren't from Colorado.
Yeah.
And they were just there to earn a paycheck.
Exactly. And that,
like they don't even believe in it. They're just out there because somebody said, hey, go to this. I mean, for whatever reason, it seems to always be like Natural Grocers or Whole Foods. Like, stand in front of this and like go get these signatures. Like, but and then they get enough, and that goes on the ballot, and then they hope.
Yeah.
We're hoping this one, People Are Smarter Wolves, was I think 51-49 here in Colorado.
Oof.
Like it was like we almost beat getting the Wolves reintroduced, which they called that a reintroduction, only then to admit that, like, oh, hey, we have an active pack that's been in Colorado for the last however many years. So it's not even a reintroduction because we already had wolves here, which they were in the area that me and my brother-in-law have always hunted. So,
so you've been, you're like, yeah, they're here. I know they're here.
Yeah. I'd never had run-ins with them the year, but like 1 year when I didn't go up there with them, they're like, oh yeah, we had one trail us out, like side us out.
Oof.
Like you could see the eyes. It was after dark. We were walking out, and like you could see the eyes, and it walked around and sat on the trail in front of us, like looking at us. He's like, I know it's not a coyote because when you're looking it in the eyes as it's sitting down, like, they're that big of an animal.
I was just gonna say, dude, people. I've had one experience with them because out here in Idaho, it's a whole deal with them, right? I mean, it's gnarly out here, man, and I think it's been a long time since I've told this story. So if you've listened to it, you'd have to scroll back to hear this. So I'm not sad about telling the story again. But we were up deer hunting, me and my buddy, and I mean, we were like, south central Idaho. I mean, a lot probably farther south than a lot of people would imagine them to be. And we're like in this bowl, and it's, around this time in the morning, actually. And it was our very last day. And we're like, we're only going to be able to put a half day in before we got to head out. So like, let's get up, get to our spot. And we're glassing this area for a long time. And it's just, there's nothing, dude. I mean, like not even a bird is flying around. And we're like, what is going on? And then literally like 500 yards coming down one of the fingers in front of us, like off to our left, just coming right up over that ridge, you see one. And you're like, that's why. and then all of a sudden 6 more followed it, and we're sitting there for a minute. We're like, dude, because the first one comes, you're like, oh, maybe that is a coyote, and it's a distance away where you're like, you can't really tell on the size, but you're like, dude, that's a pretty freaking big coyote if that's a coyote. and then you see the other 6 and you're like, damn. And it was the craziest thing. Like, it's just this weird chill that I get. I mean, they are the coolest animals. I freaking love wolves, and that's it. But I also understand it's like, they're more than a predator here at this point. Like, they are so overpopulated. It's almost like a pest problem to a degree in some parts of the state, right? Like, they've completely decimated elk populations up higher north, like towards the Montana border, like around salmon areas. Like, it's just unbelievable. But we're walking out and we're like, okay, well, obviously there's not going to be anything in here, so we might as well just pack it up and start walking out. And as we're walking out, like, and it was one of the things where I'm like, I was super surprised by it because I'd never known that they would do this at this time of day. 10:30 in the morning, they're howling us out. And dude, when you hear one like that close, dude, your whole body just like goes cold, and you're like, man, it's just such an eerie thing. And it's crazy that here, anyways, it's gotten to where it is, because again, it's such a problem in so many areas. But like, in California, they dealt with it with bears and lions, like with black bears and stuff. And here it's wolves, and like, and where you are now, it's the thing with the cats. It's just like, I wish we had and I think we're doing a really good job. Like guys like Charles over at Howl, they're doing awesome work, at least doing the best they can. And Robbie with Blood Origins, like they're educating people in which most people like that have proper education around these things, like you said, they just don't have a clue. So it's like they don't realize the impact that these animals are making, and we need to treat them like game and manage them like the states have the best. Say what you will about all the problems that it has, but like we still have the best hunting setup ever. Like the way that our system is built is better than just about anywhere on the planet. And so it's like, why don't we just manage them like game? Because that's going to be how we end up saving all these other species from dwindling numbers and, all these other things that are going on. It's just ridiculous, dude.
Well, every predator, I mean, besides wolves at this point, because they get them on the list, and I guess grizzlies
Yeah.
as well. I mean, because they're on the Endangered Species Act
Right.
stuff, they get them on that list. It's impossible to get them off, and then it's impossible to get a management plan. And anything left unmanaged is a
Yeah.
problem. No matter what it is, you can't just assume it's all just going to take care of itself and all be hunky dory. Then I mean, they're cool animals. I don't disagree. I love seeing them. Like, I'm not against seeing them, but they have to be managed right in order
100%.
to be effective. And I mean, it's like you said, like we've got to band together. I mean, you mentioned Hal, you mentioned Blood Origins, Dan Gates here in Colorado with Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife
Yes.
Management. He's kind of leading the charge for everybody here in Colorado, and he's killing it. Just trying to get that word out there, trying to get people just to wake up and pay attention. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think hopefully we can get ahead of this one. I think the bigger issue with this one is they got that word trophy
Yeah.
hunting
Yeah.
into the bill.
Just the biggest bait and switch word ever.
Oh, I mean, it is. I mean, it's such a just what do you consider in the trophy? Like antlers? Yeah, antlers are cool.
Yep.
Tell you this much: most of the time, if I get a shot at a cow, like if I'm up elk hunting,
Yeah.
and I have an either sex license, and the first thing I can get a shot at is a cow, I'm probably taking it because I
Yep.
want meat in the freezer
Exactly.
more than I'm going to hunt antlers at this point. I got two little girls. I've got a little boy on the way, and my little girls love wild game. That I'm like, if I can fill that freezer
Yep.
and not have to buy a half a beef, not have to buy a quarter of a beef that year. Number one, it saves my pocketbook. Number two, it's tastes better. I'd rather eat that over anything else.
For sure. It's funny,
Yeah.
the deal with how they say, how you were saying in Colorado, they said there weren't any wolves. It's kind of the same thing here when they, when we talk about grizzlies, because obviously there's grizzlies in Montana, but it's like, it's not like they're wandering those mountain ranges and like they come up on the imaginary line of the border. It's like, oh, I can't go into Idaho. They don't let me in there. It's like, dude, they're here in places like you can't, like and there's been, I've heard of certain ones that they're tracking that are like they're pushing themselves farther and farther west over that ridge from Montana and Idaho. So it's like you can't just imagine that these animals know where borders are and just say, oh, there's none in Idaho. It's like, no, that's not the case. It's like those dude, I try to remember what they're called because I've seen them on some highways where they have those animal bridges. Have you seen those things?
Oh yeah.
Where it's like they've created this natural, like, natural walkway to cross a road. And it's like, yeah, the animals can read that sign and they're going to use this now and not have anybody hitting them in the road and stuff like that. It's like, like, are you kidding me? Of course they're still going to, like, it's just, there's things like that where it's so evident that so little thought goes into some of these things. And it's just hilarious to me, but it's one of those things where the predator hunting is something I've gotten much more interested in these last few years because of a lot of these reasons. And I think it probably is one of those things that people understand the least about hunting, or on the other end, like just don't want to understand because there's some sort of, mythology, you could say, surrounding the predators like bears and wolves and stuff. And we've sort of Disneyified them so much that it kind of creates this like, oh, you shouldn't be hunting those things, right? Like, well, yeah, because this is what happens when you don't.
Well, number one, most of them. I mean, besides like maybe coyotes and wolves, like bear is delicious.
Bear's
Mountain
awesome.
lion's delicious. Like it's all these things. Like it's not like we're shooting them just to shoot them and waste them. I mean, even coyotes, like you can skin out a coyote. You can do a lot of stuff with a coyote pellet.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of cool stuff with it. And it's its whole own market, but it's just, I cowboyed after I rodeoed for a while working big ranches and stuff like that. And I mean, during calving season, you have to be out there managing coyotes because if you're not, you're losing calves left and right to coyotes because they're coming in and getting these calves in that last little bit before they can get up. As soon as they're born, before they hit their feet, they're trying to get to them. And there's a reason for that management, whether it's game, whether it's livestock, whatever it is, we need to manage it for everybody's best interest, not just for us, but, not just for the hunters, not just for anything, but for the game, especially because I think that's where people don't understand how hard, especially, I mean, this year hasn't been bad, but I mean, you think about the winters we've had recently. I mean, winter kill's just been outrageous on top of it. And, it's just one of those things. If we're not paying attention to stuff, it's going to get bad before we before we know it, because numbers are going to get down, and then we're repopulating predators or not managing predators.
Yep.
And we
100%.
obviously we love we love this hunting deal, and like you said, we like to complain about everything that they do to manage it, whether we're not getting the tags we want or this, that, and the other. That's obviously, probably all of our first gripe is like, oh, I didn't draw my tag because there's too many hunters. And it's like, no, dude, we're dwindling number. We need to band together and just, support each other. So
do you get to, do you hunt out of state much, or do you do most of your stuff in Colorado?
Mostly in Colorado right now. I'm just with 2 young kids. It's hard for me to get out of state. And I want to get up to Montana. I have a good buddy, actually the guy that helped me, like kind of was part of the beginning story of Rutt. He moved up to Montana, and he keeps pressing me to like, come on up. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I will. And then like this year I was going to try to, and turns out we're having a baby. So I'm like, the odds of me getting away for an archery season in August or in September is probably not real high at the moment.
That puts a damper on scheduling of things, makes it difficult to schedule. Dude, my best friend's the same. We were talking about, like what our elk plan was going to be this year. Cause usually like 2 of us will only have a chance to do really 1 hunt together each year. And last year we were talking about, dude, let's, because he works in agriculture and farming and stuff. So September is pretty impossible for him to be able to get away, And so he's like, I think I can make it. If I can set some stuff up, I'll be able to make like a long weekend, basically like head up Thursday, at least get like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday in type of deal. And then we were talking about it a couple months ago. And he's like, yeah, so not going to be able to do September this year because they're having their second, like, September 14th or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, probably won't be able to make any of that month work. But it's funny how all those things kind of end up working out, because then you still get other chances to do, like, I mean, in a state like Colorado, I mean, there's probably a lot of opportunity just where you don't have to travel as far even to at least get a day in. And that's one of the things I love about here is I have places where I can be up in a glassing spot. Like I can sleep in my bed in the morning and just get up, an hour earlier and drive for 45 minutes and hit a trail. So it's like, I can't really complain that much about it. It's just a matter of me making the priority to get up and go do it. But that's part of it.
And we're out on the plains a little bit more. It's a little longer for us to get out in there, but
sure.
I drew an antelope doe tag for archery, so I'll be able to, I had an antelope buck last year. I drew antelope doe this year, so I'm like, I'll be able to at least get out to the plains. And that is slowly, it hasn't surpassed elk yet, but archery antelope has slowly become one of my favorite exercises in frustration, especially like out here, there's just no cover. It's all just rolling grassland. So like to try and do spot and stalk antelope in rolling grassland is like the most frustrating and the funnest thing combined together, because you learn what you don't know. You learn where you mess up, but you get to go on, I mean, I don't even know, probably some days 10, 15 stalks a day, because they're just moving all the time. So you can always catch another bunch and be like, hey, all right, I'm going to go put a stalk on that one. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's slowly become one of my favorite things. And I have yet to get one with the bow, but man, is it fun to just get out there and just try. And like I tried sitting in a blind, and I mean, I might do a little bit of that to get a doe. It's going to be a little bit harder, but blind hunting, like I'm too impatient. Like I get there and I'm like, I need something to do besides just sit here all day, like waiting.
Yep.
And last year, man, there was so much water that I was sitting water holes in a blind, and like they weren't even coming in. We had standing water everywhere.
Yeah.
That like they just didn't care. They were living in like their one little square mile.
Yep.
Because they had food and water in a square mile, and they were not traveling last year. And I was like, so frustrated last year, but it was still one of the funnest hunts to do. And yeah, they're a frustrating animal, and I like antelope. A lot of people don't, but for me, I enjoy the taste of it. So
that's one of the ones that I have yet to be able to do. There's a lot less opportunities here for them as far as tags go, just because their numbers here are so low. Like all of them have to be like, and there's a couple of units where it's like, they say you have to apply for like a controlled hunt, but if you're archery, like you basically will get it. And so, but it's only in a couple of units like that. But that's one of the ones where I'm like, dude, I would love to do that, because that for the same reason, like it just presents such a different challenge. Like every animal has their own weird quirks, and you have to learn everything about them, how they move and all this kind of stuff. Like I've done elk a bunch. I've done and I've said for years, like everybody that I know that's out east wants to come out because like elk is the thing. Like that's the guys that are down and my friends in the South and back east are like, dude, I got to come out west and do an elk hunt. I'm like, I get it, man. I get it. They're awesome. And they're giant. Like that's part of it too, you know, and you get in an area where you're hearing them and like, it's just the coolest thing ever. But I'm like, dude, I am mule deer till I die, dude. They are just the coolest animals to me. And I've always just loved how like, they're like ghosts, man. You can watch one mountainside all day long and there's nothing. And then at, 5:00, one of them will come from the very top, sprint basically straight down to the bottom, take a drink, sprint right back up. And you're like, dude, he was right where I was looking the entire time. How did I not? And he was like always some dude. I'm like, yeah, I would have gone and shot that one.
I mean, that for me, it's elk. Like I love mule deer, but like elk, I love September elk hunting, getting to go call, getting to go play the game. And like, I mean, it's the fun part for me is that like we've gotten to take my nephews along with me a few times and they loved like, the first time I remember the first time my oldest nephew was with me and I just cow called a bull in. And we were just sitting there and he came in silent and just started raking. And I got to see my nephew's eyes as that bull came in quiet and started raking like that. I mean, they were like,
my brother is an alien in front of me.
Yeah. My brother-in-law's got him like by the shirt and he's like, just don't move. And like, I'm trying to sneak up, arrow knocked, cow calling.
Yep.
Of course he blows out because the wind swirls, but like still it was just that like moment of like getting to see like his first reaction of like, oh holy cow. Like it acted like, he came in right to us and, my oldest is like dying. She's only 6.
I was just going to ask, are your girls old enough to start yet?
Not yet, but they want to, or at least they think they want to at this point. They love shooting. They have their bows. Like we got my oldest her true compound finally. So she loves shooting. My littlest shoots her little bow. And then we've been doing the Western Hunt Fests for the last few years with those guys. And, both of them have been doing the youth elk calling competitions. And so like,
that's awesome.
I mean, I'm ready for them to come with me because they bugle better without a reed in their mouth than I can. Like they can do it with just their voice.
Their
and
voices.
It sounds, and it sounds like 10 times better than I do with a reed that I'm like, can I just put the 3-year-old like in my backpack and like carry her around? Like, and the 6-year-old can just walk beside me because then I got 2 different vocals going on at the same time right next to me. Like
that's so good.
But man, they love it. They love just getting to go do that. And we go to those events and they grab their bugle tubes and run around and bugle all day and run feral with all the other kids there.
That's so awesome, man.
Yeah.
My oldest is 5. My son is 5, and he's like, and I have my tube and stuff like that. And every single day, like it started 2 weeks ago, and I got him I do traditional archery mostly. I'm a recurve guy, and he did this. We had a traditional 3D indoor league that went all throughout the summer or all throughout the winter once a week at our local range that we go to. And he came with me every time. And he eats it up, man. He just loves it. And like starting like 2 weeks ago, because he knows like at the end of summer is when we go hunt elk. And so he goes like 2 weeks ago, he's like, Dad, can I take the bugle outside and just start doing it? I'm like, sure, man. And like we live in town, so I'm like, I'm gonna be talking to our neighbors, making sure everybody knows like this is what this sound is. I have to do it every year. But I'm curious, like with how the age that yours are, like similar in age to where mine is, what is sort of your approach to how you plan on introducing this stuff? Because I think that's a really delicate thing with taking something like that we love so much and introducing it in a way where it's like showing them that how and why we love it the way that we do and hoping that they enjoy it too. But like, what's sort of your approach and how you're going to plan on and getting your girls and your son here due shortly, but in a handful of years, obviously, involved in wanting to partake in this kind of stuff?
I think for me, it starts right now just by getting them involved and letting them see why we do it and what it is. And I mean, with girls, for me, with my girls, it's so hard because they're both like, I say they're wild and they're wild and they love doing stuff, but they're girls. So they have that compassion. They have that huge compassion, thing. So it's been that line of like explaining to them, like, yeah, I know like you don't like things dying, but we do this not just so we can eat, but so we can manage the population so they can be healthy. And for
Sure.
me, like my 6-year-old like wants to know everything all the time.
Yep.
Probably the same as your 5-year-old. Like they're at that age where like the why, like but why, but why.
Yep.
And for me, it's just started, from the beginning of just explaining it to him. I remember, I mean, my 6-year-old, I think she was 2 or 3. We were at my brother-in-law's house and we shot a doe off of his property up in the mountains. And we had her hung up in the barn and we were skinning her and, getting everything done. And she came in and it was taking that time right then and there to explain to her, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we did this. Like this meat's coming home with us. We're going to eat this meat. We took the heart, we took it inside, I cut it up, we pan fried it.
Yes.
My 6-year-old to this day loves to eat heart. That she will tell you that's her favorite thing.
That's awesome.
My wife, like I said, my wife's pregnant and like we had some beef heart left over from some half of beefs we bought and it was in the freezer. And so we went to New Mexico for Western Hunt Fest. I diced it up and I was like, I'll fry it up in the wok when we get down there, make tacos out of it, whatever. And so we just like seasoned it, threw it in the wok, just fried it in that deal up. And we made tacos. Since then, like we've had heart tacos like every week because we just go to the local butcher place up here and buy beef heart.
Yes.
It's like $2 a pound.
Yes. Those things,
for
dude,
beef
heart and organ meats are just so much more affordable than people think that they are compared to, especially even like the cuts that everybody wants to get, which even just ground beef. Like you can go get liver and heart and all that kind of stuff for so much cheaper. And it's so much more nutritionally dense too than a lot of those other cuts.
And it's good in a taco with a corn tortilla.
Yeah.
Like, it's rubbery texture. It's hard.
Yep.
But like you season it right.
Yep.
I mean, my wife likes to say, well, taco, like everything will taco.
Everything
you can
will
make
taco.
Anything into it.
Yeah.
Like, but like my girls, like I'll be making heart tacos and my 6-year-old will be like, hey, can you bread some and fry it? So I'll make her a little like heart tenders.
Yes.
Along while I'm doing that for her to eat. And she loves it. She just understands, I think, growing up, like, we grew up like with my dad. He butchers us, like he raises a few beef and butchers them. So she sees them come from calves all the way up to them be butchered. So she's learned that understanding of like, it's a respect thing because it's there to take care of us.
Sure.
And it's not anything else. And I think there's been a big shift to that in a lot of the industry of like teaching the next generation the why more than just you're doing it because we do it, and teaching them like, hey, this is the why, and getting them involved at a younger age. I mean, we go, like I said, those Western Hunt Fest events. I mean, there's like a herd of kids that just runs around that event that are like mine and, pack them out and all of them. We all have our kids and like they're all like best friends now, even though we all live all over the place, and they get together and they become like this little pack of feral children that is just running around. Like, but we don't ever have to worry. Like that's one thing I love about our community in the hunting community is that those events, like my kids are running rogue. I don't have to worry. Like the number of times at those events I'm running a booth and I'm like, me and my wife will be there. I'm like, has anybody seen our children? Like, I haven't seen either of my children for the last 2 hours. Does anybody know where they might be?
Right.
But they're good. So
that's so cool, man. I think a big part of it is, like you said, having those conversations early, but like part of it too is if they grow up not knowing anything else, it's not something they're ever, I mean, like it especially at this age, when you start introducing these things, by the time they're 10, 11, 12 years old and they're out being able to go hunt now, it's like they've never known anything else. And that used to be normal, right? Like that used to be, everybody was involved with this stuff from as young age as they could be for all of human history, right? And it's like, you introduce something like this, but then you also, like you said, have the message of why we love it so much, why it's so important, and actually take the time to explain these things. Then it's not just like this thing over here that my dad does that I'm not involved in. It's like, I've been involved in this since before I can even remember what was going on. And so like that, I think that's, you said it beautifully, how it's like, that just is how you take that generationally, right? And have that be something that goes on. Now they're going to do it forever and teach theirs, because it's like, I've never known anything different, Well,
I think the archery, like, not to just only be the archery community, but it's so different because we put so much time into our craft.
Yeah.
The people that are archery hunters, that take archery hunting serious, like we put so much time into that craft that your son, my daughters, like they're going to grow up seeing the care and the attention we put into practicing so that we're ethical to
Yep.
doing all this stuff, that it's not just like, hey, just go out there and just sling some lead or sling some arrows and try to kill something. It's like, no, we're going to put the work in, whether we're rifle hunting to make sure we're zeroing in our rifles, or we're going to put the work in to go make sure our bow's dialed in
Yep.
and we're competent, and we're going to do it that way, or we're going to take the time and practice calling so that we're able to. But I think it's like getting to see the people in the industry that are just so ethical, that want to grow.
Yeah.
And not even the industry, because I say industry, but that's because I work in it
Sure.
as a business owner, but people in the hunting community. And I think that's what we're getting back to, is growing that community of hunters. It's become more than just, I go hunt on the weekends. It's become like, hey, I have buddies who hunt, and we're all going to hang out together, and our kids are going to hang out together, and they're going to learn from all of us, and we're going to, be a group that raises the next generation in this together instead of on our own.
I love it, dude. Do you have any, I like to ask this of all the outdoor hunting guys that come on the show, but do you have a dream hunt that you would love to make happen one day, whether it's animal or state or, different country even? Like, do you have one that is up on your list of, this is the top of my list if I ever can make it happen?
I just got asked this question the other day too, and it's funny. Like for me, like Bighorn sheep here in Colorado, just because I'm born and raised in Colorado, like I want one in my home state. Now I know like the pipe dream,
Yeah.
that is, especially in Colorado right now. But like this is where I was born and raised,
Yep.
and I mean, I want the opportunity to put in the work for a sheep hunt. Number one, because I know the work that comes with it, and I mean, obviously, like no different than you were in this game to hunt, but we also use that as our passion and our reason is to stay in shape, to do the fitness
Yep.
side of it. But I want that reason to like go up and get to really test my skills on a Bighorn sheep hunt, because I think that's really going to separate you out, if you've actually put the work in or not. If you can do like an archery Bighorn sheep hunt where you've got to get in, you got to put the miles in, the work in.
Yeah, because they live in some rough spots, awesome. Man. Those things are in some hairy areas. It's oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that for me, that's it. Just that having to figure out routes, having to test yourself on your abilities to make sure you're physically in shape, and staying in that shape so that if I ever do get that opportunity at that tag, like I don't have to be the guy that like, oh, crap, I drew this tag, I better get out there and start putting the work in. Mm-hmm. But stay in that shape. I joke, like I stay in shape too because I have daughters and I want to be able to show like their boyfriends eventually that show like, hey, I'm in better shape than you are. Yeah. And then I also am going to have a son now, so I want him to always know that like his dad is in good enough shape that I'm always going to be a step ahead of him.
That's the dream. It's like, I'm going to hold off. There is a guy on, I think I'll find the video and send it to you. But there's this guy on Instagram, and it's a hilarious video. And I didn't realize how long I'd been following him until I realized that I've seen him do this yearly, like 3 or 4 times now. But I think his son is 14 now. But his thing is, every year on his son's birthday, they do a 40-yard foot race. And he's like, my sole reason for training is so that I can beat my son in this foot race every single year as long as I can. And I'm like, dude, that's it, man. You want to be in shape. Like I want him to always like have to work hard to be like, I got to be stronger than dad one day. And like, whenever that day comes, it will come eventually. But like, my goal is to hold it off as long as possible.
Well, yeah, we want to be able to hunt with our kids. Like, I mean, my kids are my oldest is 6. My son's going to be born this year. Like, I'm going to be 40 next year. Like, I got to stay in shape. I want to be able to have that opportunity to go with them. And in order to do that, you've got to be willing to put the work in to stay in shape to do those things. Otherwise, like, I'm not going to get the opportunity to go hunt with my girls or with my son.
100%. We got a handful of minutes left. I wanted to kind of circle back a little bit to the business side of things for you, because I'm curious too, being a company that's still, relatively young, right? Just a few years old. What sort of things did you ups and downs experience in getting the business up and running off the ground that you maybe would like go back and be like, okay, I know this now, this might have been a better way to do this. And then also use that as like what would you recommend somebody who's trying to get in something in the outdoor industry, even like, how would you approach going about it now that you've got a few years under your belt?
Man, I don't have a whole lot I changed. We were so blessed when we started. A lot of the companies that I didn't even know, like I didn't have relationships with them, but they jump in and share products. And I think that was so cool to me to see the support that came from the hunting community when they see something that they see value in.
Yep.
And then, I mean, I had we were so fortunate. We met some people like the Bow Hitch guys, Armando and Doug, when we were down in San Antonio. I don't know if you've ever met them, but like they kind of took us under a wing. We went down to San Antonio for TAC, and they just sat down and talked with us. They were a new fledgling business, and they were like, here's what you do. And I mean, I guess that would be my advice is like, if you're starting, get a hold of somebody who's maybe 2 years ahead of you, 3 years ahead of you, and let them pour into you what they have, because they're going to be able to just tell you that. And then the other part is just be patient. Like there's so many times I'm like, gosh, I want this to be what I envision it to be.
Yeah.
But like, just be patient. Just let it grow at its pace, because there's the other side of it where I'm like, man, it'd be great if it blew up. And then there's the other side of it where I'm like, I don't know what I would do, because I still have a full-time job. I still have like all this stuff that I'm like, man, it'd be insane. But this nice, like we've just been on a good progression growth of where I can keep up with it. I'm blessed at my full-time job. I work 8 days on, 6 days off. So I have that opportunity to get all caught up on stuff.
Yeah.
And then, go back to work and then get all caught up on stuff and then go back to work. And so right now I'm so blessed that if I just got hammered, I'd be like, man, I'd have to find somebody to teach and pour into and do the whole 9 yards. But that'd probably be my advice. Like the thing I'd change is I'd probably dig in deeper to some of the just business stuff. But my wife has a business degree, so I got blessed by her because she can run the numbers.
Yeah.
Like I got in trouble when we started because I was make up numbers in my head. Like we never lost money. We never lost money making a holster, but like I would just run the cost in my head and then just tax the money on the end of it every time. And she's like finally she's like, no,
it's not how you do this.
She's like, I'm building you price margins, and these are your prices. This is how you do it. The whole 9 yards. Whereas like I'm like, I'm just the idea guy. I just build them. I have the ideas.
That's awesome.
But yeah, and just know starting a business, if you're going to do it by yourself, the hats you have to wear, because it is.
Yeah. Between
me and my wife, it's the finance side of it, it's the design side of it, it's the build side of it, and then we started a website to sell through. It's the website portion of it. I've had to learn how to write code. I've had to learn like all of it to make things work. And so just knowing, if I would have known then the amount of time that would go into some of the backside of it,
sure.
I don't know if I like. There's points where I'm like, the website stuff, like it drives me crazy.
Yeah,
having to sit and stare at a computer. But if I had known that back then, I may not be where I'm at, because I'm like, I can't stand spending half a day updating a website or a day updating a website. But it all comes together.
It's one of the things that I think a lot of guys, when they get into when they get into business, especially if it's something where it's a product that they make, it's like, dude, I just want to make the product. Like, I don't, like, this is what I'd like to do. This is why I started this. It's like, I just want to do this. And it's the same with coaching, because guys are like, I'm a coach. I'm not a marketer. Right. But if you're, especially in a small operation, it's like, dude, you got to learn how to do this stuff. Otherwise, how's anybody going to know about the thing you're doing? Like you got to be able to do both to some degree. And then, scaling and growing the business and all that kind of stuff, eventually there'll come a point where that doesn't necessarily have to be your responsibility. But it's like, for a long time and longer, like you said, just being patient, longer than most people are willing to put in. It's like, I got to do a lot of these jobs or all of these jobs because it's just me, And so being able to learn all those skills, I think, is super valuable too, just because you have even more valuable knowledge, that you have workings of ins and outs of every aspect of the business. You understand it better than anybody else will.
I think it's just the hats you have to be willing to put on. And and there were times like it's learning how to manage it and manage the time with it. I think you'd thrown up the other day, like, what's the hardest part for your training on your story and stuff like that. And I threw in there like time management.
Yeah.
But that's my life in general. And it comes down to like I've got it sitting here, it's on silent. I haven't even looked at it.
Yeah.
But like, if I'm not posting, if I'm not working social media for my business, I'm not growing. And I see the direct results of it because there's weeks where I do really good, and then there's weeks where I get busy and I don't post.
Yep.
And there's a direct correlation, and it's that like, but managing it to where I'm not my nose shoved in my phone all week because then I'm not paying attention to my kids or my wife or
Yep.
anything else. And so, I mean, I think, time management is obviously like the killer of all of us. And for me, it's been that waking up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, get my workout in, set my day. And then from there, I'm able to hop on the phone, catch up on social media for the business, and then
Yep.
go to work, whether it's holsters or full-time job. And just finding those niches to make that time for yourself, carve it out wherever you have to.
I love that, dude. Well, man, we're right up on an hour, so we'll take this time to wrap it up. Chance, dude, I really appreciate you making time today. This was awesome to chat and actually just to get to speak to you like person to person rather than just over Instagram DMs for so long. Why don't you plug the company, the Instagram, where everybody can go and find your stuff so they can snatch one of these holsters up if they need one, and do all that stuff right now, man.
Yeah, we're just Rut_holsters on Instagram. The website's rutholsters.com. And then I think we're Rut Holsters on Facebook. I don't spend a ton of time on Facebook, but I think it's Rut Holsters is the Facebook page as well.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of tied together. If you reach out, you'll either get usually me or my wife responding to you. Any questions, anything like that, we're always available to answer questions, whether it's through Instagram, through the website. Even shoot me an email as rutholsters@gmail.com. We're willing to try and do what we can. We're working on building some more content, getting some more information out there of how the systems work and all the new stuff. So
awesome. Well, Chance, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate you making time to come on today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was awesome. It was great. Like you said, great to catch up and actually talk like screen to screen, I guess. That's not really face to face.
You can't even say face to face.
Way more face to face.
Yeah. I love it, dude.